had the stash for?
Oh, well, forever. Probably.
Forever?
Yeah, forever for sure. I've actually got a scar right here that
It covers it?
kind of a wrestling injury that, kind of, I don't remember what it was. It was after some high school tournament. I ended up doing it pretty good. It took a second, and we were farting around at somebody's buddy's house, and I shoot it on him, and he kind of stepped to the side, and I just kind of shot it, hit a table, like one of those sliding tables that pulls apart, and busted my lip open.
In high school?
Yeah, I think it was like freshman or sophomore year.
And then from that moment on, you're like, I guess I have to grow a mustache. Like,
no, I didn't grow up back then. I actually did have to back then they were real strict on hair. Like it couldn't touch your collar at all. And I think it was at that same tournament. I think he was it seemed like a butter knife to trim my hair. Yeah, I used to have real long hair.
Are you originally from Illinois also?
Yeah, we haven't moved at all. We've always been in this area.
Yeah. And what part of Illinois is that? So
we're like southern Illinois, so people think of Chicago. I'm like 4 hours south of Chicago. Okay. I'm actually like right outside St. Louis.
Okay. Yeah, I mean Illinois has always been super solid. Did you wrestle in college too?
No. I had different priorities. I didn't have
different. Well, I know Danny, you did boxing, but like, how did wrestling come into the picture, like for y'all?
So when I was a kid, I wrestled a little bit at St. Benedict's, but I mean, it was more like to try and keep me out of trouble. Trying to put stuff in front of me. So
you're
Daniel, what's that?
You were born and raised in Jersey, right?
Yes, sir. I don't think I left Jersey other than maybe go to Pennsylvania once until I was out of high school. We weren't whatever. Actually, no, I think we went up to Boston once, but whatever. With Daniel, as far as the wrestling, he was playing flag football. He was 7 years old.
Okay.
And running up and down the field, and the coaches, they kept on picking him up. And I'm a little more excitable back then, and the hell you keep? What are you, weirdo? What are you picking up my kid for?
Yeah.
They're like, we need a 46. And hey, I'm like, that was a 46, and I'm using different language. I'm sure I'll drop a few F-bombs here because I'm from Jersey. We use it like a comma. So, I don't know, they asked me, they said they want him to wrestle. I'm like, okay. So it went back and forth, probably 4 or 5 times they asked me. I said, he's 7 years old. Let him make his own decision. So then I went over and asked him, and they're like, Danny, you want to wrestle? And he looks at them, he looks at me, he says, I don't want to get hit with a chair. So they're like, so Daniel's godfather, Charlie Haas, he wrestled in the WWE. So Daniel will watch Uncle Charlie on TV. He thought that's what wrestling was. He had no idea. And so I'm like, they're like, just bring him by the high school, bring him in, it won't cost you anything, bring him in free. Okay. So they bring him into practice, and what they would do is they were actually smart. What they did was they had him in the wrestling room, but they had paper over the windows so the parents couldn't see in.
Okay.
Hindsight, like these guys were brilliant.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But I guess they put him, and this is how nuts you are. You go fast forward all these years. He was 43 pounds on the nose. I remember they weighed him. He was 43 even. And they put him with like a 60-pound kid that had been wrestling a couple of years. And about 30, 40 seconds, Daniel had the kid crying. They're like, we think we're onto something.
Nice.
So, what he liked about it was, you could do it, and then like you could beat the other kid up and you wouldn't get in trouble for it. People would cheer you for it. So I mean, and it just kind of snowballed.
It's a legal fight.
So, yeah, but I mean, we didn't know anything. Where we are, it's big, and it just kind of kept going and going and going and going.
And then it's evolved into like a huge part of your life.
Oh Oh yeah,
now,
took over.
probably forever. But what about you, Terry? I mean, you just said you wrestled in high school, but like, when did wrestling kind of emerge as like?
So my
like,
dad was actually
yeah.
a pretty decent high school wrestler.
Okay.
I mean, back in like the late 50s. He actually was a couple times state qualifier, never medaled or anything, but was definitely right there. And he always wanted. I was into basketball and football. I played a lot of football. I haven't grown since like 8th grade, so it's kind of I was like the same height back then, so I was huge back then. And my dad was always, we had a youth wrestling program here where Josh started.
Yeah.
And he always wanted me to do that. And I was like, man, Dad, basketball's got cheerleaders. And, I was like, yeah, I just don't want to. Well, then, you get into high school, and it's like, oh, shit, everybody's like 6'5", and I basketball. So I ended up going out and trying out for wrestling there. And it was actually my dad's cousin was the head coach there for like the whole time that Beverly East High School had a wrestling team. So, and I just fell in love with it. I had some great coaches. Just, people I'd still hang out with right now. Maurice Brown.
Oh, really?
He was a NCAA All-American at SIU. Just really good people, and getting those guys, like Josh, and then his older, he's got a brother that's 2 years older. Them guys always wrestled around the house, and they were always into. I mean, we had them doing everything. We had them doing swim, soccer, baseball, and then it's like, oh, I might as well just try wrestling, and then they did, and they loved it. Well, I take that back. Josh loved it. Justin hated it to begin with. I mean, literally hated it.
Yeah.
But just kind of, from there, it was kind of weird. They used to do like these beginner-only tournaments in the area, and I can remember I was actually out of town that weekend, so this is their first tournament. And Robin takes the kids to this tournament, and I'm not deer hunting, and she calls me up. She's like, "What the hell did you get me into?" Both kids lost their first match, and they're just bawling. Every kid that lost a match that day is just crying. She's like, "It's just crazy. They're everywhere." I was like, "It's and that didn't last too long for Josh anyway. For Justin, it took him like, man, he was a chubby little kid, and it was probably like 2 years, and then it just started clicking. And he actually, I don't know, he wasn't as. It's kind of weird. He wasn't as talented as Josh was, but he had a work ethic like you wouldn't believe. I mean, it was just he could. I think he could have wrestled in college. He was done. He didn't do it.
Yeah. So when did it become like the focal point of the Koderhand household? Was that when they were real young or not so high school?
I would say so. Josh actually was playing. He kind of willed everything down to just baseball and wrestling. And it was probably like 10 or 11 when he just kind of willed it, just focused on wrestling. But
and then
it was from like, I don't know, probably 9 years old was when he really started practicing a lot. It was tough for a kid because he was always real small. I think this eighth grade year he might have wrestled 79 pounds at state.
Wow.
Yeah.
So,
so he went from there, and then he did a little did freestyle too. So he actually qualified, won cadet 88 pounds as an 8th grader, and and so it's like it's going to go to Fargo, and then you're trying to hold that 88 pounds, and it's like, Josh, you got to get to 106 here, like within like 3 months.
Yeah. Now, I'll flip it back over to Danny, but I don't know as much about either of your kids, but Danny sent me pictures of him traveling all over the place, and he's Danny seems like he was involved with national tournaments from a pretty young age. Like when I was in middle school, high school, I didn't know what Fargo was. I didn't know what an HSEAs was. Like journeymans and Ironman. I didn't know what all this stuff, like, were both of y'all's kids like immersed in that, from the beginning, or was that something that you kind of got recruited and jumped into? Like,
we would go to Tulsa for
Tulsa too. Yeah. Like, I didn't know what that was. Yeah.
We would do that. I think he started doing that as an 8. He had like the perfect birthday for that Tulsa tournament. He's like September 4th, and I think the cutoff was like September. So he'd be like 10 years old wrestling 8 and under.
Yeah.
And then like when he was 13 years old, he's wrestling 12 and under. So it just worked out. And I loved that the roller did an awesome job with the tournaments. We're about a 6-hour drive from there, so we go down for the kickoff and then go down for Tulsa Nationals. We never went to Reno, but
Yeah.
we did some duels at Virginia Beach, which is, I think Josh would probably tell you, minus college, but those were the funnest tournaments ever. We would we would have like 2 or 3 teams, and we'd either stay in the whole same hotel, or a couple times we had just a big ass house that all the families that were there. But I mean, we'd wrestle 3 matches during on I think it was a Friday, it was Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday. It was Memorial Day weekend, I think, all the time.
Yeah.
You do that, and then you'd be done for the day, and just it was about having fun. But we always had a pretty solid team.
This was where, Tulsa?
No, at Virginia Beach duels.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like I don't think he ever did it as great. I think it was always middle school. We probably went down there like 6 or 8 times.
Okay. What about you and Daniel? Like, was that something once you really got into it, like you guys were traveling all over the place, or?
So a friend of mine in town, Jay LaRue, his son Brandon, he had brought him down. I guess at the time, Scorpions, you couldn't get in the club. It was an invite-only club. It was like a very, like you had to. They only wanted select kids in there. And LaRue had gone down there, and they said they want your kid to come down. Daniel had been wrestling. I mean, he hadn't been wrestling a year.
Yeah.
And we were trying to find clubs, like we didn't know what the hell we were doing.
Yeah.
So they're like, well, I went down there and they keep asking about your son. I'm like, no, I didn't realize how nuts it was. And they had seen him in States or whatever. And
the state was.
It's States. All right. Really, I got to put up with this shit with him. So
it's up for debate.
Yeah, whatever.
It's not. So sorry.
I'm like, Scorpion was like an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes from the house, and I'm like, what do I look like driving my kid an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes after you work all day and you go drive back, what did I know? Right? Little did I know. So Jay's like, listen, I'll pick him up from school, bring him down with Brandon. So I meet him, and I go in there, they got him doing push-ups, pull-ups, they're running, these kids are crying. I'm like, this is great, So but afterwards, the coaches grabbed me afterwards. They're like, well, we'd like to bring him to Virginia Beach. I'm like, Virginia? He was 8. And they're like, well, we need a 45. And I'm like, okay, here we go again with this. Or no, it was 40. Yeah, we had to be 45 plus 1 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, he's 47 pounds now. And they're like, we'll take care of that. Okay. So they were going to let him on. They were going to let him train at the club for free if we'd agree to go to this national tournament in December. It was down in Virginia Beach. I'm like, okay. And it was in Richmond. So it was the back holiday duels. And I think at the time there was only 24 teams. It was loaded. But Scorpions made the finals. He wound up going undefeated.
Wow.
And it's the only time he ever went to Virginia Beach and went undefeated.
Wow.
It was Gold Pool. But, it was like a who's who was down there wrestling of like the NCAA's past few years.
Yeah.
And, so then they just kind of, okay, whatever. And then, he wound up leaving Scorpions. He wound up going to Team Colorado the 1 year. Then he went with Buxton every other year. The NHSCAs, we did that. He did the freestyle. It's funny. He wrestled Hamidi in the finals of the freestyle nationals when I think he was 10 years old, out in was it Wisconsin Dells, Tara? Is that where it was?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like in the water parks.
Oh yeah, that's probably. Yeah, I know what you're talking
about. Yeah, but he wrestled Jordan Williams. I mean, he wrestled studs. I mean, it was like, now you look. It's kind of like Terry's got pictures with Josh and Dean Peterson. He's showing me pictures.
Yeah.
Like these kids all grew up together. So it's like when you go to the NCAAs, it's just like you're going to see old friends.
Yeah.
Because these kids battled for years and years and years.
Yeah.
Like what Terry was saying.
Some of them old brackets. Like Josh and Kenny used to be pretty close to the same weight. There may be a couple tournaments where they were in the same
bracket. Yeah.
What is he 23 or what is he 03?
He's 21. He's 21.
20. So
he's a July birthday, so he doesn't have one of these perfect birthdays to beat up the smaller, younger kids there.
Well, and it's the opposite for USA Wrestling, so.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, as far as, the national tournament stuff, it was kind of like, again, like I said, we didn't know what we were doing. It was like, okay, you want to be the best kid in town. Then you want to keep going out, and you keep going out, and you just keep looking for bigger competition. You keep looking for better competition.
Josh beat 3 NCAA champs.
Really?
This year. Yeah. He beat Messenbrink. I don't know what, because he was a Wisconsin kid, and he came down in Grant City, which is 20 minutes from here. And I can remember the match, almost score by score. And who else did he beat? The Nebraska 57-pounder.
Antro
Taylor.
Yeah.
That's how Josh beat him for his first Eagle at Tulsa. And then
he told me he knew Vincent Robinson too.
And Vincent Robinson,
yeah.
That's who Josh beat in the state finals in Illinois in high school.
That's wild.
I called that this year. I told a few people Vincent was going to win that bracket.
Move that he beat Jameson in. That little kind of kid had a double leg, and Josh just did that little throw by.
Yeah.
It's almost exactly the same.
Yeah. Oh, that's how he beat him.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. No way. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's wild. I mean, the fact that Robinson never won a state title and then just kind of rolls into NCAAs as a redshirt freshman is pretty wild.
Yeah,
I didn't know who he was.
No, Daniel wrestled him a couple of times when they were little.
Josh, and then I think he lost to Sergio Lemley from Michigan 2 times.
He beat him this year.
I mean, he's always been solid.
He beat
I was rooting for Vincent every round except when he wrestled Mark Anthony. Mark Anthony's my guy. Kevin's my guy. I mean, and that match was tight.
He barely beat him.
Yeah,
it was like the last second takedown.
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
He's gonna be a solid one.
Yeah.
So sorry, it was Messenbrink. Who was the other?
Antrell Taylor and then Vincent Robinson.
Yeah. Okay, so sorry, excuse me. So when did the Naval Academy become come into the picture? Neither of you guys are military background. What was the connection or draw to the Naval Academy? And if you guys want to just kind of talk me through your perspective through that recruiting process, maybe, or really, how'd you get tied in, I guess?
You first there?
Yeah. So I don't know. Josh said, I don't know, it was probably freshman year or sophomore year. He was like, I think I want to be a pilot.
Yeah.
All right. So, and then he starts kind of looking at different schools, and there wasn't a whole lot of schools that had aviation. I think Purdue was one, North Dakota State had one. But, these guys weren't really reaching out to Josh, and Purdue actually probably would have, because I think they had 4 guys on their lineup that Josh beat the shit out of. And then it was kind of weird. Josh won his junior year. So he took second as a sophomore at high school at State. And then he won as a junior. And that was like 21. So this is like right before COVID just shuts the whole world down. And he actually had an airplane ticket from to go to West Point. I bought my ticket, and then they bought his, and we were going to go. And I guess Ward had called him up and says, "Hey, we're shutting everything down. We're sending everybody home." And then they just kind of quit talking to him. He had kind of been talking to. So I guess at that point, he was kind of he was open to military. He wanted to hear what it was. Colot never really reached out to him. I don't think he did at Campbell. He actually recruited. He was actually at one of Josh's best friends at a house visit in Belleville when he was with Campbell. But then, all of a sudden, Colot starts calling, and I think that was NCAA had shut everything down. So they had all their conference tournaments, and then they canceled the championships, and then NCAA did this what they call this dead period. So here Josh is prime of his recruiting career, and he can't go anywhere. Yeah. So all these like Illinois called him. We had several Zoom meetings with Illinois, but they just never really offered anything. Maryland, I think, was talking to him. SIU Edwardsville they were like, listen, you're going to go here for free. We just don't have aviation. And that was kind of what the other schools were like. So then Colot and Blaze, I can remember them guys, they'd call Josh and they'd do like a FaceTime or whatever, and they'd have a golf cart and they'd go around the campus and they're like, hey, what do you want to go see? And they just kind of hit it off. Just pretty similar personalities and just easy to talk to. And the whole time Josh is talking to me and my wife about it, and I'm like, Josh, man, if you want to be a pilot, what the hell else do you need to know? Yeah. We actually went, so that would have been 21. We went to the senior nationals down in Virginia Beach. Yep. And we actually had a layover in Baltimore, and I'm like, my wife didn't go with me at that time, but I was like, hey, listen, I'm thinking about just staying in Baltimore and driving down to Annapolis and checking this place out, and just off the record, because we couldn't have any contact with anybody. And she's like, oh man, I'd love to go see it. So I was like, get on the fucking plane, meet us there. And it was cool. It was enough said. He committed. And
his story. Yeah, his story. He shared his perspective with me on the podcast, but offline too. But he was like, "Yeah, I was supposed to go to Naps," and I called him, and they're like, "Oh, we might need you at 25," and he's like, "I'll be there," like I'll be. And then, I forget what he said about. He did mention the West Point thing. I think the way he explained it was like, I was supposed to go to West Point like the next day or like within a week, and then Colak called me, and I was like, "Nah, I'm going here." Like that's the way I remember him explaining it. But as far as like was the military thing like ever an intimidation factor for you, or like
I mean, it was a little bit. So my dad was Army, my wife's dad was Army, and then my wife's stepdad was actually retired Air Force. So I mean, but that's being enlisted in that is so much different than going to an academy and going that route. Sure. I think when Josh started out, he was just happy to be wrestling. D1, D1, and then he actually, I think it was plebe summer. One of his detailers, they're all barking in his face, and he's like, "Hey, what do you want to do here?" And Josh's like, "Well, I want to wrestle here." And I guess that was apparently the wrong answer to tell your detailer, during plebe summer. So he actually kind of got yelled at a little bit for that, and a little extra coaching.
Yeah.
But it's amazing to look at that transformation from plebe summer to where he's at now, and just how much he matured. And I mean, he's ready to move on and serve and go out in the fleet. And
yeah, I bet you that is crazy to see, like from the dad perspective. You hand over your son and he comes back 4 years later. He's this battle tested man, and I know you're proud of him, but and we'll get into all that. But
I mean, I got to sit and talk with your dad. Your dad was at the sitting right next to us at the end.
Oh, geez, we
didn't dig into that stuff too much, but man, he was awesome. That's
your dad is awesome, man. Your dad's a good dude.
Yeah, he is. I was very happy that he could come up, and he misses it, and I was gonna ask this eventually, but since we're talking about it, I was sitting next to you after Josh's sixth place match, and obviously I can't even imagine the emotions going through you at that point. But after the match, I remember you just standing up and just being like, I guess that's it, and
yeah, I mean,
I just kind of looked at my dad too, and I don't know if he heard you, but like I know he had one of those moments at some point. Like, there's so much that's invested into it, and I don't know if you remember that or if that was you do.
Yeah, I mean it just kind of hits you, and it's like, man, this is like the last 17 years of our life, and like, now what the hell do we gotta do?
Yeah, you've poured literally so much into it, and emotionally, financially, like physically. I can't even imagine.
We went to I can remember Josh. We took one of Josh's buddies. He's actually graduated from the academy last year, Jalen May. He wrestled a little bit, but we went up to the Illinois high school state finals as their 8th grade year, and just along the way, we're just sitting there talking like, "Hey, how much do you think we've traveled just up to this point?" And we were at like 30,000 miles as an 8th grader.
Wow.
So from the time he was 7 years old to whatever 13 or whatever it was, to have that much, just going to practices and going to Virginia Beach and Tulsa, and man, we went a lot of places.
30,000 miles.
We lost you, buddy. Oh, there you
go.
He's good.
You got me?
Yeah, I got you. What?
I'm just sitting here listening to you go, man.
Yeah, I mean,
stories.
How was the mic'd up thing that you did? I didn't say a whole lot.
I didn't get to see it. I need to get it from Ben. He had it on his phone. It would have been better to have it for the blood round match for sure, though.
For sure.
Oh man,
Well, you could hear him yelling over the crowd. You could hear Josh's emotion over the crowd.
Yeah. Those videos, that you had, and then I don't know who the one guy was that captured a bunch of pictures, and
Cam did a good job.
Holy crap!
Yeah,
because like so Josh actually 3 times as a I guess before high school he took 2nd place at state. So 3 times we had to make that drive, coming home, and Josh was just broken about him. Actually, his 8th grade year, I think he took like a day or 2 off of school and finally went back to school. And his principal, Mr. Kodo, called. I don't remember if he called me or my wife. It's like, hey, Josh he's just not in a good place. I'm gonna let him sit in my office for a little bit. And this dude's probably one of the coolest principals in the world. He's absolutely in the right spot for middle school, like 7th and 8th grade principals. And but and then freshman year he qualified. He lost in the blood round freshman year. Sophomore year he takes 2nd again. I'm like, fuck, this is crazy. This is just and then he finally pulled it out. It was weird. The kid he lost to at high school, we actually went up to Chicago and did like a round, like a three team tournament, 4-team tournament, just a quad or whatever.
Yeah.
This kid misses weight, so we knew him and Josh were going to be like, at some point at state they were going to see each other.
Yeah.
He was a Mount Carmel kid. He actually ended up going to wrestle to West Virginia. But this kid ends up blowing weight, and Josh goes up to him. He's like, "Hey, I'll tell you what. Let's do an exhibition after the duel's over." He's like, "Yeah, might as well." And Josh ended up losing, but he learned a lot from that. He learned he couldn't get out from underneath that kid. Well, coming into the high school finals, I'm like, me and his coach had a really good, we could talk to each other. I was like, don't put him down.
Yeah.
And Josh was just there. Nobody could hold him down that year.
Yeah.
And then he chooses bottom and ends up getting turned and ends up losing. So here we are, heartbreak again. It's like, fuck.
Yeah.
So I was kind of giving Cole out a hard time. I was like, hey, listen, I just want you to know, every single level of wrestling, I've got Josh into the finals. If you don't get him into the finals at NCAA, I will forever go down as a better coach than you. So, I don't think he bought it, but
fair enough. No, that's fair enough. I'll remind him of that. I'm sure Josh will remind him of that too. But
well, I mean, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah, you kind of jumped into the Philly stuff, which we'll circle back to. But Danny, like, how did Colat and Naval Academy kind of come into your all's like foresight and and gotten us to where we are now? I talked to Colat last week on the podcast, and he shared with me, like when he started talking to you and Danny about coming to Annapolis, like he realized like he had to wait like 3 or 4 years just for him to get here.
Yeah.
So it's been a long journey just to this point, and obviously we're excited about having him around for another 2 years, and I know you are too. But like how did that come to fruition, I guess?
So sophomore year, that was the heart. I mean, it was national preps, COVID. Like it was, I think 2 weeks after national preps, everything started shutting down.
Yeah.
So there was really nothing, and sophomore year was a shit show for him. Freshman year, he knocked it out of the park. Sophomore year, he was moved around the lineup. There was a couple of different things, a lot of it, you ask him, it'll fall on him. So I guess a week or two before, maybe a month before, June 15th was the date, I think, Tara, right? June 15th. That was the day they could call.
Yeah.
And I guess he was talking to your guy, Peyton, Brian Antonelli, who was his coach at Blair.
Yeah.
And, he talked to him, okay, this school might reach out, this school inquire, this one asked about you, this one asked about, and Daniel goes to walk away, and he says, what about Navy? And Daniel shrugs, he goes, well, yeah, Colat's there now, because Colat had just taken the job. And so he was, the first night, so we were down in Tennessee, June 15th, that week, at Shane Chittum's ranch, Cody Chittum's dad. They got a real nice, it's like Team Foxcatcher for kids. That's the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
And so everything was kind of more laid back down there, and he was able to train and whatever. And I guess 1201, 1210, whatever, Roger Reyna calls him, UPenn calls him. Then he gets something else from George Mason, and he doesn't hear anything else. So that morning, I guess they were practicing probably about 10, 11 o'clock, and he comes off the mat, and he looks at his phone. The reception is really spotty. And he comes off the mat, and he's got a missed call, and he's got a text message. Hey Dan, it's Kerry Colat. I'd like to tell you about some of the opportunities we could offer you here at the Naval Academy. And he starts looking around at his buddies like, who just texted me this shit? Like he thought it was a crank.
No way.
And the phone rings again, and he answers, and the look on his face, and it was Kerry. It was Colat.
Yeah.
And he was kind of awestruck, that Colette was calling. So the reception was a little bad, so they agreed they were going to touch base again. And we're driving back from Tennessee, and they connected. They talked for a while, and Daniel wanted to commit through the dashboard of the car. I'm like, whoa,
That's
whoa,
awesome.
whoa, slow down, slow
Awesome.
down, slow down. And it's because I want him to be sure. And my thing was, if you give your word, that's it. There's no, oh, I'm going to change my mind or I'm going to do this. And I'm not into the whole, take a picture of myself in a singlet at 6 different schools and social media, pump you. That's, you know him. That's not him. That's not him. So, and that's, I mean, a lot of the people around him weren't big with that stuff. You talk about, Jeff Buxton. There was no, he's not a pound your chest kid.
Old school.
So I guess same type of thing, Tara. We had gone down. So my birthday, my wife had gotten a hotel in Ocean City, Maryland. That was in July. So it was second weekend in July, and we're gonna stop at Annapolis. Me and Daniel are gonna stop in Annapolis and meet the girls down in Ocean City. Mm-hmm. So we're driving around, and you couldn't get on the yard because of the COVID or whatever. And we're downtown Annapolis, and he's walking around. There's like these boats in the harbor, and he's like, these boats are like $10 million, and then there's women walking around with like $5 million in plastic surgery. He's like, you want me to go to school here? So then that following Monday, we drove back and we brought the girls, and Brian had made a call, and one of the trainers came and he was able to like talk to us through the fence, because everybody was so, you're going to get the duties. Yeah. And, he talked to us for about an hour. So on the Randall Street, which comes into the yard in the front, was that gate 1, I guess? Yeah. So my wife's brother who was killed, his name was Randall. So my wife's like, it's a sign, it's a sign, but again, he wanted to commit. I'm like, no, you wait. Even Brian was telling him wait. So finally, I guess in September, I called Brian on the phone. I'm like, look, he's gonna, because a couple other kids had committed, and he wanted to be the first 2027 kid to commit, and so, or 2026, because we didn't know what NAPS was at the time.
Yeah.
So he was like, I'm in. So like he calls Colette, and Colette, whatever, I'm calling Colette, and I'm saying to Brian, I'm like, yo, what's this guy's deal? My kid's ready to sign his life over to him. He's not calling back. He's like, yeah, he's not. You gotta be patient with Gary. And
yeah.
So calls him back. So Colette gets on the phone. He's like, all right, what the fuck are we doing? So he's like, I'm in. And then so it went forward. But he never had an inkling of the Naval Academy. My wife works at Picatinny Arsenal. She works for the Army. So like when he would go to daycare there, he would see these guys come back in uniform, pick their kids up, and he thought they were like rock stars. He thought it was the coolest thing. It's just we never asked him. But when Colette, the first thing he asked him, he said, is it intimidating for you to serve your country? And he was like, no, actually, I'd like to do it.
Yeah.
And he was like, and I didn't, I never asked him. But one of the things in the process where I was like, take your time, kind of goes back to the high school thing. With the high school, coming out, I mean, there was a lot of high schools that were interested in it. And we thought that Blair would give them the most valuable piece of paper. Listen, wrestling's going to end. Like Terry's telling him, it's going to end. But what can wrestling do for you as far, as your future? And, we thought Blair would give him the most valuable piece of paper.
Yeah. So
fast forward, when Daniel's convincing me why Naval Academy is the right move, he's saying to me, he's like, well, Dad, what's going to give me the most valuable piece of paper? They're going to give me a job. They're going to give me a career. They're going to give me free room and board, and I get to wrestle for Carrie fucking Colette.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. So Mike, again, it was completely his decision. I mean, me and my, as the more I've gone into it, I mean, I couldn't be prouder. I couldn't be prouder. You know, it's a really special place. And, you know, we're talking about the wrestling and it's such a life lesson sport, and it's provided so many opportunities for them.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, it's.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's interesting to get y'all's perspective on that. Because as you guys have probably figured out at this point, the Naval Academy is a place built on tradition and legacy. And so many of the midshipmen running out throughout the brigade, it's like, oh yeah, my dad went here, or my granddad went here, you know, my sister, my brother, da, 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 you know, and then for you guys to come in and kind of just jump right into it, you know, get fully immersed into it without any sort of previous, you know, lineage is cool to me. And then buy into it fully, and here you are, your kids are pumped about, you know, what's coming next in their future, and really understand the weight of that, you know, like Josh certainly does. And you know, Danny, you know, he's still got 2 more years to figure it out, but I know, you know, Danny, you and I have joked about how much just physically he has transformed in the last 2 years, and yeah.
Hey, so Colat, when they recruited him, they weren't looking for like a utility guy, like a 33-41.
No way.
Yeah, but that's what they wanted. Ask him. It was funny as hell.
I know. 25-pounder.
Yeah. Blaze is like, could you hold your hands up in front of the monitor? He's got those big Marmaduke paws. You know, they're like, so at one point, I remember at one point in the process, you know, after he had committed, and, you know, he'd gone to Fargo, he went 52, and Colat's like, he's like, well, what weight do you think you're going to be? Dan goes, I don't know. Anything from 57 to 97. He's like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
He's so
So he's like, just get here and we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You don't recruit the weight. You recruit the wrestler.
No, and it worked out. It worked out.
Josh was a 25-pounder, and I think Plebe Summer he was like 160. I mean, they're just feeding him all kinds of like chicken fingers, and I mean just all kinds of fat shit, and you know, he just got huge. We seen him because you can't talk to him, so we seen him at that smoker. You know, the wrestling one is like, holy shit, he looks fucking huge.
Yeah, he didn't even wrestle at the blue and gold thing. Oh, but you saw him at the smokers. When you went to the plebe smoker.
No, we never went.
You can't go to the plebe smoker. They send you the video
on YouTube or something.
Yeah. And he was like, wow, he's 160 pounds right now. Like,
yeah, he's huge. So luckily, I mean, so Jake Allen at that time was like 33. I don't even know, 41, and he ended up cutting down to 25. And I think Colot even talked about that. He's like, you know, that was huge. You know, for a senior them guys were hating. Him and Josh were hating life that year. You know, they were cutting hard.
That actually comes up a lot. Josh's freshman year, and how Jacob Allen sacrificed the spot at well, you know, Josh was beating him at 33. You know, I wasn't around, but this is what they talk about: is Josh was beating them, and Jacob, you know, really nutted up and made that cut.
Oh yeah, big time.
And then ended up winning the duel because of, you know, they won the duel because Jacob won that match or whatever. That's the way it's been explained.
I think he placed in Vegas that year. I don't remember who he beat. He had a really good season.
Yeah.
But Jake Allen was huge influence for Josh. I mean, you know, he was the captain that year, and he was, you know, they'd take Josh to church, and just kind of Josh was struggling that year, you know, just with all the plebe stuff and the weight cutting and just the academics, and you know, Jake was huge for him. Erin was huge for Josh too. I mean, I remember Kerry finally called me up. He's like, what? How do I do this deal with Josh cutting weight? I was like, man, he's just kind of one of those. When he was doing it here, we didn't let him always cut a whole lot of weight. 5% was about what we would like. But he would eat like these little frozen popsicles. And it's just a bunch of frozen sugar.
Yeah. Wild. Well, he probably was kind of caught in the middle of a growth spurt.
For sure. Yeah.
At that time, in his age, I definitely was. My freshman year was a growth spurt age for me, but and I remember that stinking, like cutting down to 149, and yeah, but no, that's wild.
So I mean, and then like to get to like this year, even last year, he was doing a lot of meal prep. I don't remember who.
Yeah.
Somebody there had some sort of meal delivery service, and then Josh started doing that. And I think this year doing factor meals.
Yep.
Just because it's more just a convenience of having it in the wrestling room, and you don't have to run over to Bancroft and eat. And
yes, yeah, a lot of the guys have leaned towards the meal prep factor meals, or there's another local guy that does stuff for them.
Yeah, I think I don't remember who that was, but Josh seems to like it, and it seemed to work.
Do they still do they still do the breakfast in the room?
Yeah, we do breakfast in the room after practice, which is so great. There's eggs. There's always a protein, whether it's bacon, sausage, or something, and then there's fruit. The breakfast delivery, like right after practice, is great. Lunch and dinner is always the thing that, like, King Hall's great and it gives you the options, the healthy options, but you are limited to like what they are serving. And that's one thing that, hopefully the club is something, we can build enough capital and something that we're able to provide those factor meals or give guys an option when it comes to lunch and dinner to get the macros and the proteins and everything that they need to be comfortable with the weight cut stuff, because that's what those big programs are doing. They're getting the fuel that they need.
Oh yeah.
We're just not there yet.
I mean, I heard to be able to cut weight.
Yeah,
I heard Aaron's a really good cook. I heard Aaron Colat's a really good cook.
Aaron is a great cook, and she does a good job, for sure. That might be asking too much.
Yeah, I know Josh would he'd go to Sam's or wherever and buy like a whole salmon, and he would he'd cook it up at his sponsor's house, which they've been pretty helpful too. That just having a place to call home while he's grinding it out.
There's definitely ways to maneuver around this problem, and it's not even a problem, because if you want to be successful and if you're going to identify that as an area of friction, like the guys who want to make it work are going to figure it out. There's people that get the factor meals. There's people that go to the grocery store on Saturday night and get the food that they need for the rest of the week, and they either store it in the wrestling room or they get it in their dormitories, so the guys figure it out. And that's 95% of the team that does that. So and I'm saying that this publicly on the podcast, not just to you guys, but like, if that is a point of friction, like there's ways to maneuver around it. And King Hall is really a good resource to get anything you really need. It's just you're limited to what they're serving.
But I mean, them guys got to get cleaned up. They got to get dressed. They got to run over there, and they got to be in uniform or whatever. Where if you got that meal there on site, in the room, it gives you an extra 15 minutes in the day that
100%.
You can refocus for your afternoon classes or whatever.
Yeah. They just adapt.
Peyton, with all this cutting, I mean, you don't want to touch on Daniel with the cutting?
What cutting?
Yeah, exactly.
The most weight he cut was second day of NCAA's at 11:30 at night.
I'm laughing because you're talking about this meal prep stuff. With Daniel, it's pizza, Chipotle, and dog shit.
Yeah.
You're telling me not gonna go.
I wish he'd take it seriously. I do.
I think he will.
Man, if you can do it without doing it, if
he's fortunate. He's fortunate enough to not have to.
Yeah,
and that's something he's evolved.
He is, but if you're gonna give yourself the best chance at doing the things you want to do, like that's an easy target area for Daniel to identify and rectify, like, and I've talked to him about that, and he's like agreed, but
he smiles at you and
and then he deflects, but no, I'm with you, and I think really Daniel getting on the stand, as a sophomore, like I could just see it in his like I know now, like, because I've obviously seen him and interacted with him since then, like the dude wants more. Like
there's a lot of meat left on the bone.
Dude, I hope he does.
Yes, there is nothing. He knows it and he feels it. He feels that feeling, and wants more of it. And I can just tell. And he's been smart about like getting back on the mat and training and resting the body and stuff. But just the way that he's interacting with me, it's like he's already talking to me about those things. And it's pretty cool to see, like, he's hungry. There's still meat on the bone, like you said. It's awesome. Which is a pretty good segue, and we'll go to you, Danny. Like, what does Philly mean? What did Philly mean to you? I think it's a different perspective than what Terry went through, but knowing that you have 2 more years to go through those emotional roller coasters, and you even said to me in the lobby of the hotel, what did you say to me? It was like, it's not worth it. Like, these feelings are not worth it. I fucking hate it. It was the right before the blood round.
Yeah. It's funny because, like, I've said this to a few people, everybody's breaking my chops about the beard. I'm probably the only parent that walked out looking 10, 12 years younger, because that tournament ages you. Yeah. I mean, Terry's generally cool as a cucumber. I looked over at him a few times. He was pissing down his leg, man. I mean, it's really, and right.
I just know how many times he's lost. I know what the outcome. I mean, had he not medaled, I don't know what would have happened. I mean, he might be lost somewhere.
Yeah. Last year, I mean, I was heartbroken for him. He was disgusted. He was disgusted last year. Yeah. I mean, being an All-American, and I'm not going to sell this short. I mean, it's an honor, but I mean, he didn't walk out of there happy.
Yeah.
And he was like, I took 8th. No, that's not how he's wired. But as far as what Philly meant for us, me and my wife, I mean, we were extremely proud. Yeah. I mean, it was awesome sitting there with the, with the Koderhands, and, the alumni and the families, and, hanging out with you guys, and, just seeing old friends. But I mean, it was as big as a spectrum as it was. I mean, it was just the same people that he grew up around, and we just all kind of evolved through the sport together. I mean, some new faces, some fell off, but it's basically, that same 70, 80%.
Yeah.
As far as what it meant for us, I mean, it was the pinnacle of his sport.
Yeah.
To be around that. And, and then for the president to be there, come on, bro.
That's cool.
I mean, that was, that was incredible. To see the president there. I mean, that was, forget the politics. I don't care where you voted. That's the president of the United States of America.
Yeah.
And my son shook his hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was there in Tulsa.
Yeah. A couple years ago. Yeah. Jim Jordan brought him.
Yeah.
That was pretty wild. And the seats that we had were perfect for that too. We're like 150 feet from him. Like, you could see every expression.
The arena, when he walked in, it shook. It was that loud. Mm-hmm. The USA chants, everybody applauding. I mean, it was just.
Yeah.
I mean, NCAA wrestling, the championship round, and the president of the United States of America. What's more American than that?
Yeah.
Tough to beat that.
No, it was an amazing, amazing event.
What about you?
So your senior year, Wask, will be back here in St. Louis. So
yeah,
you're right. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, because next year Cleveland, and then St. Louis.
Yeah, Cleveland, St. Louis. Yeah, the Kansas City was awesome. Yeah. I mean, it was the way everything was closed. We all stayed in the same hotel. Philly was a little more of a. I mean, it was a nice venue. very clean venue. They did a really good job getting people in and out. You know, great food selections. I mean, the whole. But I mean, just I guess
Yeah.
where you stayed, that
Yeah.
wasn't that it wasn't as easy accessible. And then the
Yeah.
parking. I mean, they were knocking your teeth out on the parking.
Yeah, we rode that subway. It was perfect for that.
Yeah.
Minus the one day when it rained, and
Mhm.
you know, minus they got a lot of skunks out there in that subway.
I'm sure it's
That shit's legal,
I'm
man.
sure it's just skunks. Yeah.
It was freaking everywhere.
Well, that's the thing about St. Louis is like I just remember walking. I don't remember there being parking issues or like.
Yeah.
And I don't know about Kansas City, but you just you walked from the hotel to the warm up area to the arena. Like it wasn't. Yeah, I don't.
Kansas
remember.
City, what was it? 2 blocks, Terry?
Yeah, it was
like 2 blocks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't like Philly as much because of the parking stuff, but
yeah,
Mhm.
there wasn't a lot of stuff right there, like that fan fest. I don't know if you guys walked over.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, like where was that?
It was over at the football stadium.
It was at the football stadium.
Dumb.
Yeah. And it just wasn't. I don't know. When they did it in St. Louis, I don't know when it was a few years back. They had like the cadet. I think they had a schoolboy tournament there, like a dual tournament. There was like 4, 5, 6 states or something doing in one venue, and then
I remember hearing that.
And then they had the senior world team there was practicing. It was just neat.
Yeah. Yeah, they do it well in St. Louis. St. Louis is a good spot. What about you, Terry? Like, what did Philly mean to you? You know, especially after Josh kind of coming up short the last 3 years. You know, you kind of expressed that wave of like not relief, but you know when it was done. Because you've been there.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, like, you know, it was all or, you know, it was now or never, and you know, Josh started out really good, had a couple wins, and then actually that win against Saunders was kind of so Josh always did this wrestled for Nick Perler, kind of like, you know, extra training because it's over in St. Louis, and this kid that was at Cornell was over there for a little while, and he was just, I don't know, he'd always have to look over at his dad to see if he could practice with them, and like, whatever, man, you ain't that fucking good. And they're like 8 years old doing this shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just knowing, you know, then he runs into Happel and loses just a one he had at the end of regulation. He hooked that leg. You know, he could have had it. You know, he was. You know, we knew he was crushed there, and then, you know, it's kind of like, all right, he ain't done. He ain't quitting now. You know, and then to come back and you know, we knew Jameson was going to be tough. You know, he battled him. He had him in Vegas the year before that, and I think I don't know what he did. Rolled his foot or something. It was like his toes were all. I don't know if he popped a blood vessel or something, but you know, just kind of grinded that out, and then you know, and then after that, it was kind of like anything else is just bonus from this point. You know?
Yeah, what a dramatic way to get an All-American.
You know, and Jameson, he's a freaking beast too.
Oh yeah, definitely the toughest blood round match for that weight class.
Yeah, you know, you can kind of, if you watch the video, you know, you can kind of look. You know, Josh is usually a dick to people, but you know, you could just see that look when they shook their hand. You know, when he shook hands, it's like, man, dude, I know what you're feeling. You know.
No, yeah, that's actually a really good point. And yeah, from the video, you do see it in his face. It's like there was a lot of respect right there in the handshake.
Even last year when Hardy beat him, he's like, I just can't be mad at the guy. He's such a fucking nice guy.
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, whatever.
Well, because usually, I mean, Josh doesn't wear his emotions at all, and then just to see it just pour out of him in that like 15 to 20 seconds was kind of like, I mean, you can hear me laughing on the video. Like, I know you guys, like, I'm like in tears laughing because I'm just like, I've never seen this side of this human being who has literally invested his entire soul into this moment. and him just dump it into the last 15. So I'm like crying, laughing, like at the same time, and just and then then it's gone. Then he's back into his mode, like just wild, just so wild. And I know
watching him lose that quarter, talking about Josh, watching him lose that quarter and I mean, he was devastated.
Yeah.
He was absolutely, because he wanted that Saturday match.
Yeah.
He wanted to be, on that big stage, and, for him to bounce back and then just to see his emotion come out, like you're saying, I mean, 4 years it took him, and he put everything on it. You really, like you said, I mean, you could see it all.
Yeah. The video, Cam did a good job of capturing all that. And, and then to hear, is it Brian Hazard? I don't know, but to hear him, the United States Naval Academy, and then just the place just chill.
That's something else too, Tara. And it wasn't just our section. What was cool? The crowd recognized the military guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
mean, there was only a couple All-Americans this year, but I mean, you could hear
Army names. Called,
yeah.
I might have went.
They were there. They were there.
No, they're fine.
Oh, geez.
7 equals 4.5, right?
Oh, geez.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Not the best showing for West Point. Not the best.
But listen, respect to them, respect to Air Force. But my point being, though, seriously, was that the crowd, it was, that they recognized that there was a serviceman on the mat and that they had achieved something.
Yeah. Sure.
And this year it was 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and be honest with you, you guys got a lot of good kids coming back. I mean, it's
got some good kids coming in too.
Yeah. I mean,
that's right.
Elmore, I love the way he wrestles. Freddie, he's there. He's capable of being there the whole time. And
don't sleep on Lay. Don't sleep on Chico. No.
Yeah. I was so
that's my guy, man.
Josh freaking threw that headgear. I was like, fuck, he just lost a team point, didn't he? Damn it. The only reason I say it is because I think Lay did it last year, like, I don't know how many times.
Yeah. Listen, sometimes the ref hits you for it, sometimes they don't.
Yeah,
but I mean,
sure.
It's emotion.
Yeah, there's a lot of headgear conversation. I think in the background.
No, I thought it was singlet conversation.
What do you mean?
When they, what was it? EIWAs?
Oh, jeez.
Oh, dropping your sleeve.
No, it was
somebody ran to the director of the EIWA, wanted to deduct a team point because my kid changed his singlet because there was blood on it.
Different uniform.
Yeah, the singlet gate was EIWA's.
Yeah. They wanted him to take a team point.
Yeah. Yeah, there was discussion about that, but they didn't end up taking a point, which is great.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of that, how many fucking pins? I mean, can your kid get a pin? He's got one.
What?
Your Danny? Does he not like to pin people?
Who?
Your boy.
What? You pin?
No, he's got to get the pin.
Bonus.
Oh. I've talked to him about that, and I can't tell him anything about wrestling anymore, but I told him, I said, listen, if you pin guys, you don't have to wrestle as much.
Yeah.
But I mean, he
likes wrestle.
He likes bar fights, man.
Yeah, that's all it is.
He's like his old man.
He likes giving up a couple takedowns in the first and then just proving himself in the second and third, outwilling people.
He used to pin. He used to be a pinner. But I mean, they kind of, and Terry, you know this, Peyton, they evolved through like stages in their career.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And you look at it, he's been in college 2 years. He's got one fall. It's bizarre.
Yeah. Almost impossible.
I'm like, okay. I mean, he wins more than he loses, so whatever. But whatever. I mean, I'm not to change it up, but I mean, like just the different coaching and the different styles of what he's evolving to. You know, it's coming from one system going to another.
Yeah.
You just see so many different, things. But,
Yeah, Josh, this year, I mean, he got so much more defensive.
Yeah.
Just not giving up takedowns, and he's not afraid to grind it out and beat somebody by 1 point.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. He had so much poise.
Yeah. I think that first match that against Pitt, he's like, I think at 1 point he was losing pretty late, and but he just wasn't panicking, and he knew he was going to get him, and
Yeah.
I think Iowa State, he ended up winning on riding time. Just it's amazing, like a different style. Like I've always thought, like freshmen, their biggest downfall is being able to get off bottom.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like they just can't get away, and then as you grow, you kind of develop your own style, and just Josh just happened to be a little more stingy, and I'm sure that was part of Colot's doing, and probably Quinn's doing a little bit. He was. Man, I don't know what Josh would have done without him this year.
Yeah, Quinn's been huge for Josh this year. Quinn's been huge for the entire team.
Yeah.
Quinn's fit right in.
Quinn is the man, and it's crazy. Like, this is a perfect segue into the club stuff, but yeah, couldn't agree more. And Josh has shared that with me too. Is like, his confidence this year, I think, is directly derived from his battles with Quinn in the room when we do the club practices and they're going at it and getting out on Quinn or taking him down or just riding him, like, because you bring up great examples with Iowa State, with Frost, and then with the Pitt dude, and then even in overtime in the first round of NCAAs, like there was never a moment in Josh's like mind, even against Jameson, he knew he was going to win. He knew it was going to win. And it was just going to be like, okay, when or how, he didn't force a shot. He didn't put himself in bad position. He stayed composed, and he put the guys in positions where he wanted to score, and he took advantage of that in all of those. In the Frost match in Vegas, like, he was down, he was losing, but he ended up getting 2 takedowns in the last period or something, plus riding time.
The same exact takedown, yeah.
Yeah. So, you mentioned Quinn. Both of you guys have been so involved with Navy Wrestling Club. I don't know. I'll say Quinn was the X factor this year for Josh. Whatever it was, but and both of your kids have capitalized on the resources that the club has provided, whether it being travel or equipment or training partners type thing. Like, both of them jumped on Quinn, jumped on Mac, myself, as another person to talk to or to work out with or to bounce ideas off with. Like, I guess I'm asking you why did you guys believe in the club, and how do we get more parents as involved as you are? We'll start with you, Danny.
Well, listen, like I told, Colette, you have your conversations with your kid's coach, and I get along very well with Colette. I mean, we just kind of clicked, like Daniel did. And if you're going to believe in my kid, I'm going to believe in you. But if my son's on the team, I'm on the team, and I'm going to do everything I can to help it be successful. I've donated equipment, I've donated money. I mean, this year I was kind of like, just to make it easier on the team, I'm driving out to Iowa twice, bringing stuff back, bringing stuff out there, whatever I can do to, if Josh can get an extra 5 minutes sleep, or Jonathan Lay, or, any of them, I'm just dropping names. But if I can make it an ounce off of them, put a pound on me, and that's because, I mean, we've been doing this since they're little kids. Nothing changes, but, there's so many ways you can help, and if you don't know, ask, what can I do? And listen, I mean, it has nothing to do with the room, but I mean, just the morale. I mean, what Janos and Sam do with that tailgate.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
Yeah.
as a family, as a bonding thing. I mean, they do a great job with that.
They do.
But I mean, every year, you're always trying to find ways to improve. And like this year, they brought you on. They brought Mac in. And you and Mac have been tremendous with Daniel. Terry, he was fishing for a compliment, so I just gave it.
Yeah.
But like Daniel told me at one point he's in the room with you and you're going over something and you're like, well, Cole, I would tell you not to do this, but Daniel's like, let's go. Like, should I have said that on video?
No, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, and then, you're looking at they're looking to bring in another RTC guy, to help with that. And, and again, with the coaches, I mean, Blaze is Blaze. I loved Mike Evans, but he moved on. He's, taking care of his baby, with his wife and doing what he's doing. And Dan Neff had to, move on. And still love Dan. When I see him, though, I yell at him. But, Tyus is incredible addition. And like I said, Blaze is Blaze. But I mean, you got Carrie Colat and Barry Davis in the same room.
Yeah.
What the fuck do you think is going to happen?
Yeah.
It's just going to keep getting better and better. And you're adding to it with these guys in the RTC. I mean, it's just, how could you not want to get involved and help?
You still got to have those young guys that are still, grinding it out with these kids.
It's such a great mix, though, because you have it.
Right.
You have the experience. You have the young guys.
Out all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's great.
But yeah, I mean, listen, you can donate to the RTC. You can donate directly to the program. There's so many ways you can help. And like I said, if you don't know, ask. What can I do? Call Peyton. Peyton's got an open line.
Except when you call. Just kidding.
No, it's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good.
But yeah, what about you, Terry? I mean, you guys obviously been around for 4 years, and I can't speak for how the club was organized, previous to this year, but I know you guys have been donating. You've traveled to everything, and like, what did Quinn mean to you and Josh from your perspective? Yeah.
Like I said, it was awesome. I mean, I don't know what, when Neff left, which was kind of who Josh kind of grinded with, they were, I know they interviewed a few other guys, and it's you got to envision these kids are just a year or 2, 3 out of college, and they're still kind of wanting to compete, but they need to make a living, and Annapolis isn't a cheap place to live, so you got to kind of think, okay, what does it take for a young man that's may or may not have a family to live in Annapolis and still wrestle and practice. And it's like, man, you're looking at like a $50,000-$100,000 a year position, and that can't come from the academy. So you guys got to kind of grind it out, and you guys are doing, what you're doing is awesome. I know you've been trying to get, possibly get a golf tournament going, but like these socials are awesome. Get these older wrestlers that are that went through the academy, get them to help out, and times are just different now.
That's Terry. You bring that up, the what's it, the Friends of Navy Wrestling with the alumni?
Yeah,
that's awesome. Those guys are awesome.
I can't
sit there on those calls. What's that?
I can't take credit for that one. I think that's done.
Josh.
Yeah,
Josh
it's all a team.
Yeah.
We all want to see the we want to see 2 All-Americans. Next year we want to see 3 All-Americans. So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean the club, it's gonna hopefully continue to grow, and the goal is to get 8, 9 additional coaches / athletes, for all 10 of our guys to grab, on any given day. Obviously we're not there yet, but that's the goal. That's the long-term goal, and the ask from people, and the vision is there. And I think the last 2 years kind of are indicative of that type of commitment. With David getting on the stand last year and then 2 this year with Josh and Danny, obviously, like, and then like you mentioned earlier, Terry, is like next year we're bringing back like a really solid squad. Where people got to buy into that vision and really, I love the analogy you said, Danny, with if I could take an ounce off this guy, I'll take a pound. And as a guy who's lived it, and I didn't have a club, there wasn't a Navy wrestling club when I was there, but I see it from this perspective. That's a thing that I wish I had. And a lot of the alumni from my era, they're always asking me, how do I get involved? Like, and that's what motivates me, is kind of get everybody, because when I was gone for the last 10 years, I missed the engagement. I missed the interaction, that camaraderie, because once you're done here, like, you're joining a team in the Marines or in the Navy, but it's not the same. And, I think the club is kind of that outlet, that resource that people can connect with. And that's what's so great about the socials. They have been really good this year. But winning brings in the money, and winning keeps us around. So,
hey, wait, let me stop you there. We're talking about Philly. Something just popped in my head. Terry, how fired up was Dan Muther when our kids all American?
Yeah, that guy's the man.
Dude, he was, I mean, I went to shake his hand. Forget that, and he hugs me.
Yeah, Dan's awesome. Them guys, him and his wife are there.
Yeah,
so much.
That guy's awesome.
Yeah,
I mean, the alumni they're just. So one thing Daniel said last year, and Terry, our kids have been around a lot. They've been around a lot of good people. They've been around a lot of great people. They've been around a lot of great wrestlers. But he said that the one thing that makes it so special there, he says, I'm in a room full of guys that I know. It's the first time he said it's the first time it's ever had it. He's in a room full of guys that anything he ever needed, they would do for him, and he'd do anything for them. Yeah. And it wouldn't be questioned.
Yep.
He'd be willing to put his life on the line for any of them. They'd be willing to put their lives on the line for him. And it's such a special, special group that, as parents, Peyton, we're so privileged to be a part of, that our sons are a part of. And you can't put it into words. You really can't.
Yeah.
Does that get different when you're out? You were a Marine, right, Peyton? Does that keep going with not teammates, but that bond with them guys?
No, I think it carries over. I always say, like, because people get caught up in the Naval Academy sometimes, as athletes, it's like, oh, I got to worry about my grades. I got to worry about, my service selection, and they get caught up in that. And what I try to remind people is, like, the better wrestler you are, the better officer you're going to be, whether it's Marines or Navy. And, that mentality and that work ethic, and wrestlers are always besides AJ Ferrari maybe, but usually the more humble and servant leaders that
was random.
I mean, he's just not a humble guy, but
I think he's found God.
He has. He's seeking. He is, but
and North Carolina too. I think are you guys
UNC
North Carolina next year?
I don't know if we have him on the schedule, but to answer your question, no, that doesn't go away, and I think the team prepares you for that type of it. So, like, you go from being on a team at the Naval Academy, where Josh was the team captain, but he is surrounded by his peers and his teammates, and now he's going to be immersed in a platoon or a squad where he is the guy in charge, and he is responsible for building that culture that he wants. So he's going to mold it in the same way that he did with the wrestling team. And the guys or leaders or graduates from Navy that don't have that same type of experience, I think, struggle a little bit harder in building that type of camaraderie. But to answer your question, no, like that's going to carry over. But to circle back, I would never trade a moment or a hard practice that I had with my guys on my team for anything, because those are experiences and relationships that I've built, and for like I those are still my best friends. Those are the guys that I call when I need something, for sure.
Funny, my son would already know that, and he's not even anywhere near the time you've put in.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when you graduate, it's not like you're on your own, but like I said, like you're the leader of your platoon or your squad. You know, it's not like you can't just look at the locker next to you and ask Cale Krebs, like, you know, what would you do in this situation? It's kind of like you're kind of on your own, you know, but you still have the, you know, the tools and resources that you've learned over the last 4 years to make it what you want. But and you know, and I was a Marine, and Josh is going to go and do some different stuff, some more challenging and probably tighter knit stuff than I ever did. So I know it'll be similar to what he's used to. But yeah, that was a good question.
Are we going to interview Peyton now, Tara?
Yeah, I'm ready. Well, guys, I gotta admit, this is the longest one I've ever done. 1:21 minutes. I didn't even tell you when we were rolling. I think I started it when we were talking about your mustache.
Yeah.
So that'll be all right, guys.
All right, man.
All righty.
This has been a very great conversation, and look forward to see you guys in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
All right.
That's the football stadium, man.
No, alumni.
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 Why are we doing an alumni? Why didn't they do it at a restaurant?
It's cheaper.
Cheaper? All right.
Yeah.